We've heard a little bit today about public comments at the Bonner County meetings. There is a code on the books, 1-200. I've heard it referenced at meetings over the past year. I'd like to hear more about what you think about making public comments during weekly business meetings. And I'm going to give you a minute apiece to talk about this. How would you apply this code to the county's business meetings? So starting with, why don't we start with Brian Riley this time? And we'll end with Brian Duncan.
I fully support public comment at the business meetings. And I fully support it being after each agenda items. If you're gonna make a decision, you're going to vote as a board, you need to hear input on that. When you're doing it at the end of a meeting, it's too late. The horses are already out of the gate. So let's get back to where we hear the public, we hear their concerns. Let's get it after each agenda item. Along with that, I fully support more public involvement at all of the department meetings. Planning and zoning, let's go to the planning commission, let's give some input there. It's the same thing I talked about the other night. It's been my same message all the way through this entire process. I've said the same thing. Let's get the public back in there.
I read 1-200 at the beginning of every meeting. Everything we do as an elected official is a reflection of the trust that is placed in us through the voters. The way that government works in a republic is that we, the people, delegate some of our authority in our Constitution, which in our Constitution makes very clear that we are a republic, and we must follow the law. If we aren't, what's the point of having the rule of law, period? Now, I don't go to the grocery store and say, I'd like a 2x4. Why not? Because it's a grocery store and they don't sell 2x4s. Now I can, but that is not the purpose of a grocery store. And the purpose of a business meeting is exactly what we are doing, which is to carry out the business of Bonner County.
Well, I'll have to say that 1-200 ordinances has been abused by current board. It's been read selectively every Tuesday morning. And when the people or other commissioners will point chair back to the 1-200, the chair says, I'm a chairman and I'm overruling you. He selectively picks and chooses which portion of this ordinance to enforce. Personally, if you don't like it, change it. But I would say we need to get rid of this ordinance, period, because we do, once again, we do not hang our First Amendment rights when we go into the Bonner County Commissioners meetings. And that case has been established. There's a lot of case laws that establish that people have a right to speak and they can say whatever they want, regardless if the board likes it or not.
So if we had a statesman chairing the meeting, it would not be abused. I believe the intent of that, because it does say that the public is allowed to speak at the discretion of the chair. All right, so if we had a representative in there that really wanted to hear the people, it's in there. That county code says that at the chair's discretion, that people are allowed to speak. I believe, and I'm not sure, so don't quote me on this, but I could see where you might want to have something in there to protect the meetings, to protect the commissioners, if for some reason we had 50 or 100 Democrats show up at a meeting and want to filibuster and keep the county business from happening. I believe that might have been the intent of making it up to the chair whether or not the people are allowed to speak. But it has been definitely abused. There's no arguing that. If I'm elected as a commissioner, I would vote to not have that happen, but it would still be up to the chair. I would hope it wouldn't be abused.
So county commissioners have both the authority and the responsibility to correct an ordinance or code that's wrong. I believe 1-200 is written wrong, and it should be changed. If you look at our Idaho State Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, it speaks about the right of the public to peaceably assemble. One of the reasons it gives to peaceably assemble is to instruct our representatives. So, what other place than a county business meeting is the most appropriate to peaceably assemble and instruct our representatives about the business of Bonner County? Let's change that code. Thank you.
So I'm going to give Commissioner Amat 30 seconds for rebuttal since he's been mentioned a couple times.
Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution talks about that you will be held accountable for your freedom of speech. I am here today in a Republican forum. We are not Democrats. This forum and our founders understood the importance of elected representation. If we were to take the 32,500 registered voters and give them 3 minutes for every agendized item, or if we were to address some of those issues that have been brought forward, we would be growing government. This Republican is not interested in going beyond my role as allowed by the legislature.
So everybody gets 30 more seconds, so Luke, if you're not done, you'll get another shot at it. But let's start at the head of the table, Ron.
So, I kind of lost my train of thought there. I didn't know we were coming back up. But I just got to reiterate again that obviously we're a Republican form of government. That doesn't need to be repeated all the time, and we are in a Republican form. I don't believe that needs to be repeated again. But as long as I'm standing up here, I am a Christian conservative Republican. So if we're talking about different types of Republicans, that's where you can put me. Thank you.
Once again, we don't need any more laws, rules, and regulations that has to do with our free speech. They are all unconstitutional. A lot of case law, multiple case laws have established that any restrictions on speech in the business meetings are unconstitutional. If we would restrict a free speech, even if they're Democrats or Republicans coming to a commissioners' meetings, then how can we hold our elected officials accountable? We cannot.
You kept 30 more seconds if you're not
Do
done.
I get to be last after I went first, or you want me in the middle again?
Oh, now you got me confused. All right, let's go on to Brian Riley. I'll just take your word for it.
Going back to what I had stated earlier, that you're only gonna get 15 to 18 minutes to hear from us today, and if you don't go out and actively search some of the other forums, you really don't know what we're going to stand for. So we need your feedback, I feel, as elected representatives to you, because that way we are giving a true representative government and vote for you on the Board of Commissioners. That is part of the reason that I feel there should be discussion. It worked for several years in previous boards of the county commissioners after each agenda item to hear your feedback.
The best way to make a well-informed decision is to gather as much information as possible and go through a rigorous debate of that information. Let's be willing to listen, and if we were to have the challenge of the whole public wanting to participate, I would accept the challenge of figuring out how to make that happen. Because if we had that level of engagement in our government would perform a whole lot better for you, the citizens. So let's do it.
Part of being a county commissioner, or a parent, or a recovering teacher, or a soldier who has led people, you have to have the ability to say no. When someone asks you to expand government outside the authority granted to you by the legislature, it is wrong. And in regards to the very clear guidance that was given by our prosecutor, our business meetings are limited public forums, and I would encourage you all to look at what that means.